In this conflict, one of the biggest mysteries is the Russian war machine. We know their military is changing and evolving, but there's very little information and perspective about what things are like inside the Russian armed forces. And a mill blogger named Patrick Lancaster has gotten inside a Russian drone unit and is going deep into what exactly the Russian military wants from its drone operators. So I'm going to be taking a look, and we are going to learn just a little bit about the new face of warfare. Let's get into it. Okay, so again, Patrick Lancaster, guys, is a mill blogger who is pretty pro-Russian, and that is just a requisite for blogging in Russia. So the fact is that, you know, he has the press badge here, and I actually think that he indeed is a member of the press. I think he's doing interesting journalism, offering a perspective of this conflict that we can't get otherwise. And yeah, obviously the Russian military is not going to let him in if he's like totally dunking on them. So I appreciate what he does. Again, does he seem to be more pro-Russian than I am? Yeah, but this sort of reporting is invaluable and rare in the English language world. So let's take a look at what he's got to say.
I'm Patrick Lancaster, and right now we are in the Zaporozhye region of the Ukraine war zone, and we are here with the Russian forces, particularly the Krim or Crimea Battalion, and we are going to see them in process of attacking Ukrainian forces with drones.
Okay, so I want to point some things out here. First off, he's going to show you the drone footage. I can't show it here on YouTube. I think he may have censored it appropriately, but YouTube's rules, if you are an American-based or English language-based creator, especially a small one who's not part of a larger press network, as you can see he is, YouTube subjects you to a different set of rules as far as censorship. So oftentimes I will literally react or put on my channel clips that are not copyrighted and are displayed for sometimes millions of views by other legitimate press outlets like The Sun, but I get demonetized. And it's a whole thing. It drives me crazy. It's one of the reasons, I guess I can mention it now. I'll just do it early in the video. I have my own website where I can make the uncensored combat videos, where we can do the deep analysis that I just can't do on YouTube. It's called Combat Vet News. And it's twice a week we find the viral combat footage coming straight to us from the front line. We get it sometimes less than 24 hours old. And it really gives us insight into what the fighting is like for the soldiers on the ground. But it's for members only because, again, I make war content. I get very few sponsors. I get frequently demonetized. So literally, you guys, the fans that believe in what I'm doing and depend on my analysis, I in turn depend on you guys for support that enable me and the team to continue to do this. So if you can, pick up a membership. It's definitely worth it. Obviously, specialist, any one of the tiers are going to get you access to the twice-a-week videos. But if you want to be a lieutenant tier or colonel tier member, hugely appreciate it. That's why I shout you guys out every video. You get access to the exclusive rooms on the Discord. There's a lot there for you. So, you know, I appreciate you guys over there on Combat Vet News. And we actually got some of the fighting, not from Zaporizhzhia, but from Kharkiv in the video on Thursday. So, again, check it out, but let's get back here.
This is a drone team, and we're going to talk to them about how the process goes, and we're going to see this live fire attack on Ukrainian forces with Russian drone team.
Okay, so I want to point out a couple of interesting details here. First off, the gear. I always find the gear work, the gear analysis to be really interesting, right? Because you can learn a lot from a soldier's equipment. First off, note Patrick Lancaster's equipment. He has a lot of protection. So he has a standard plate carrier. You can kind of see it here. Let's see if we can back up a few frames and see if we can get a better squared up look. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. So he has a plate carrier, right? And it's interesting, this isn't in Russian camo pattern, but it is in a military kind of OD green. So it's not Russian Ratnik, but it is military grade. So he's got his plate carrier right here. You notice he's got the molly loops, which he would have if he were a combatant. He would have his ammunition pouches here, and you can see the other soldiers do seem to have their ammo pouches there. And then he has these shoulder protection and the neck protector and the groin protector. And the role of these items is that they are anti-shrapnel. So they are Kevlar, they're soft, and their job is to absorb shrapnel. So they won't stop an assault rifle round or anything larger than that. But in the battlefield currently, the number one threat far and away is shrapnel-based weapons, cluster munitions, artillery, 155 shells, mortars, etc. And as that means that you need this kind of Kevlar padding to actually block and stop those shrapnel from entering soft tissue. And you may think, well, why is he protecting his shoulders? Seems sort of silly, right? The shoulder is not, you want to protect your vital organs, right? Heart and lungs primarily. Everything else, you can actually take some damage, and the chances of you surviving are still pretty okay. Again, some exceptions with major arteries like your aorta and the arteries that feed your kidneys. But the reason you want those shoulder pads is because think about what's on the other side of a shoulder, right? Here's my shoulder. Let's say shrapnel were to pass through the soft tissue of the arm. Where would it enter? It would enter under the armpit. Well, note here, the armpit goes straight to the heart and lungs. This is actually a really vulnerable point laterally when you have a plate carrier, right? You'll notice here, this soldier wearing a plate carrier, or these two soldiers here, that the ballistic plate sits right on the heart and lungs, right? He's wearing it a little lower than you're supposed to, but it sits covering the heart and lungs on the facing forward, but along the sides, there's no protection at all. The only protection are side plates that sometimes run right around the rib cage. Again, he's wearing his a little low, so it sits on the sides, kind of protecting the kidneys. This is super common. This isn't like roasting this guy. U.S. soldiers, almost everybody wears their plate carriers low because it's very uncomfortable to wear it high. But Patrick Lancaster has these in order to protect from shrapnel passing through, horizontally. Similarly, right, this neck protector is to prevent what's called spalling. Spalling is where, one, it protects the neck itself because, again, a lot of very sliceable veins and arteries running through the neck. It's a very sensitive region. But two, if your ceramic plate blocks a rifle round, oftentimes that rifle round will shatter. The metal itself will shatter, and it'll travel sometimes. It'll hit the plate and shatter, and you can see how hitting the plate, shattering, it will fly up into the neck. By having a piece of Kevlar right here, it'll catch it and prevent that from penetrating. Again, this is all very bulky equipment, but he's a member of the press. And the groin protector is Kevlar for the groin, right? And you guys know, in addition to the fact that as a male, we have external reproductive organs, so they are very vulnerable to shrapnel. There's also major femoral arteries that, when damaged, again, when cut by shrapnel, will bleed you out very quickly. And so the reason he probably has all this, one, as a public figure, the Ukrainians may target him, is particularly because, as I said, he's pro-Russian. Again, he's clearly embedded in these drone forces, but also he doesn't have to maneuver, right? He is not a light infantry soldier, so speed is not something that is a factor for him. So it's okay that this equipment is very heavy and bulky because he's not going to be running. He's probably going to be climbing into a van and driving to a more secure area in the rear.
Можете сказать, что мы сделать сейчас, где мы находимся и как процесс будет?
Процесс у нас группой воздушной разведки были найдены вражеские окопы с помощью FPV-дронов и ручных самоделок, которые сами...
Okay, so it's interesting. He calls them FPV drones, and he holds up the drone and something called homemades, which sounds like his way of saying DIY. This is obviously not made in like a home, but I think he's referring to this as a DIY explosive or a do-it-yourself or field expedient is sometimes what we call it in the U.S. military. Field expedient anti-personnel charge.
Сами делаем, сами собираем. Будем поражать цели.
Ага, ага. И, как я понимаю, это как камикадзе, да?
Да, это FPV-дрон «Камикадзе».
Ага, и это...
Разведывательный дрон Mavic 3.
So interesting. So these guys, it's funny. If this is a two-man team, they are operating like a shooter spotter. You notice how the Mavic 3 is the reconnaissance drone, the spotter, and the shooter is the FPV drone because they share the same problem or constraints as a sniper spotter team. Right? If you're a sniper, you're looking through the world through a sniper scope, right? You have a very narrow field of vision, and cognitively, you have a very narrow focus. Your job is to engage a single target, which means you're kind of shut off to the world around you. That's good marksmanship, good sniping. So you need to have this spotter whose field of perception is the whole environment, in addition to helping you identify and engage your target. And that's exactly what this Mavic's doing. It's perceiving, we've seen it on the Ukrainian side. They use the reconnaissance drones to perceive the larger battlefield, and then the FPV drones, who have a narrower field of view, focus in and walk into a single target.
Ага. И что будешь это сделать?
Ну, за счет его...
Here's what's also interesting. One, this guy has a all-black Gorka suit, a really classic Russian military piece of gear that you see a lot of Russian forces wear, and it's a real workhorse as far as a military uniform. I actually have two pair of Gorka suits. They are top tier camping gear, top tier work. I actually use one as kind of my everyday wet weather jacket if I'm expecting it to be chilly and rainy and I just want a windbreaker. You could see it looks cool. Listen, I'm not above saying something looks cool. It's cool. It's very functional. And you could see it looks like this is actually one of like the Gorka 5s, like something upgrade with some upgrades because it's got these zipper pockets. It's got a Velcro patch. But what I think is interesting is that this guy has a small, I think it's a plate carrier. This might even just be a chest rig, right? But a very small chest rig. And literally I can see one round. Everything else he has is to facilitate the drone operation, which is fascinating. He's got a knife. I think he has a multi-tool. It looks like he has a radio here. But this is somebody whose weapon is the drone. And he has literally one spare mag probably for emergencies.
Вот сейчас вычислили цель, сейчас будем подниматься, корректировать, наблюдать движение. Если все подтверждается, то второй номер запускает FPV-дрон по цели, отрабатывают. Mavic снимает все это, подтверждение и все остальное.
Right. So you notice he says for confirmation and so on. Yeah, the Mavic's going to film it, one, because sometimes when you hit a target, you can learn more about it using something called a battle damage assessment. And so, once the FPV drone detonates, you won't know, did you destroy the target? What exactly damage did you do to it? How many crew were in the target? There's a whole bunch of other information you can gather but only once the target has been hit. So again, the shooter-spotter pair, very interesting to see that exact kind of dynamic play out on the drone level.
Понял. И можно сказать, вы откуда?
Я из Крыма.
Ага. Это потому, что батальон Крым, да?
Нет, потому что я родился в Крыму.
Да. Ага, понял. И как долго вы здесь воевали?
С первых дней.
Ага, понял. И как вас Крым это как добровольцы, да?
Да.
Ага. И почему вы это не Минобороны?
Если можно, я не буду на этот вопрос отвечать.
This is really interesting. I've been thinking a lot about this. He asked, why did you join the Crimean Battalion in particular? And he says, if possible, I'd like to skip this question. So I'm not sure what he could say or not want to say. One, he may not want to dox himself. There may be information that he particularly doesn't want to be put out there. He may, for example, say, oh, I have family in Sevastopol or something. Or I participated in the 2014 annexation of Crimea, and that operation, my role in it is still, I still don't want it public. I think it may, my number one theory is actually that this may not be his first battalion. He may have left another battalion on bad terms, and he may not want to sit there and say, hey, I joined the Crimea battalion because I was in the Russian military and I beat the brakes off an officer and they kicked me out, and then I transferred to this battalion. So he may just be like, he may be someone who might not be totally welcomed in if all the information was out.
So, без проблема. Okay, so now, сейчас что будет?
Сейчас поднимем воздушную разведку, посмотрим и попытаемся определиться с подтверждением цели. Если подтвердится цель, собираем, заряжаем камикадзе и отправляем к врагам.
Okay, this is where things get kind of crazy to me, because they literally are going to show this dude putting this drone together, which is surreal. Now, notice this guy's gear as well. You notice he has a few more magazines in there. He too has a knife, and most importantly, it looks like he's got his FPV drone goggles, which I find kind of fascinating.
Понял.
That's actually a pretty good quality knife. If you ever want to know if a knife's decent or not, you look at these. You see how the metal of the blade extends all the way into the handle. It's called full tang, and it means that the knife is pretty heavily. It's strongly reinforced. The blade is less likely to break at the handle point. But again, he's got his magazines. This looks like an AR mag. It looks like he may even have a pistol mag here, but I don't see him carrying a pistol. But you notice he has 3 controllers. He has a looks like a power bank here. Again, I'm fascinated by the gear that an individual FPV drone operator carries. Looks like this might be another battery. He's got some wire, some stripped copper wire. Notice he's got his watch. Nothing tactical or special about it. Just a regular normie watch. And this is one of the things, guys. You know, there's a lot of YouTubers that really drive me crazy because they are tactical like gurus, and they will sit there and tell you that, oh, it's a problem if your watch is a little reflective. The enemy could see it. And it's like, listen, dude, the enemy could see flipping anything. And this is a guy who's with by the way, the Redut PMC, notice. So he's actually, the Crimean Battalion of Volunteers, but he's with a PMC, which maybe, actually, if he's indeed part of a larger Redut PMC unit, he may be saying, listen, I'm in this unit because I was a criminal. I joined this unit because I had a criminal record, and I'm serving, much like the Wagner PMC, I'm here to expunge my criminal record, right? But back to the point at hand, this is someone who has survived the entirety of this war in the Russian military, which is a military with a very high casualty rate. And you notice that, again, here's somebody who's got just a regular old watch, right? He's obviously got a good OCP camouflage, right? But this is somebody who draws on a lot of experience. And notice what he doesn't do, right? He's not some super elite tactical watch, tactical everything, right? The things he does, he likely does because they have real, actual battlefield tactical value, and they aren't feel-good tactical YouTuber trying to sell you more dumb gear kind of guy.
Расскажите, что сейчас конкретно делаете?
Ну, сейчас будем фиксировать, так сказать.
All right, so he says this projectile contains striking elements. It's aimed for infantry. I think what he's referring to, I think he's saying, hey, this is an anti-personnel munition. So striking elements, I think, is the Russian mistranslation of shrapnel. That it is going to produce a lot of shrapnel designed to take out light infantry. It's not going to penetrate armored forces. And as they said, we found the enemy, in this case Ukrainians, and they're in a trench.
Самодельный наш снаряд с поражающими элементами для пехоты, предназначенный с помощью простых самых стяжек, в простонародье их так называют. Сейчас зафиксируем, крутим сюда детонатор и будем ждать уже подтверждения разведки, что нам скажут, есть цели, нету целей. Пока просто подготовимся.
So I wonder, you notice this has a a mortar. Like, this has the same tail or a similar fin structure as a mortar. But what I think this may be, this looks plastic, like 3D printed. What I actually think this is like a small grenade, a small explosive charge wrapped with shrapnel. I think this is actually a piece of 3D printed plastic, so it's not that heavy. And I think it's shaped like that because the drone is going to be guiding straight. And you have to think, this thing could actually be a fin, right? Like imagine if you strap something to the outside of an aircraft, and imagine if the weight of that thing you strapped or the aerodynamics of that were asymmetric, right? As the aircraft flew through space, the asymmetric thing you strapped to it would push the aircraft and keep it from maneuvering effectively. So I actually think that it happens to look similar to a mortar shell because they have kind of the same need, right? A mortar round has to fly vertically straight, but this has to pass through the air horizontally, but still straight, still without the air pushing it left and right. Right, zip ties. Look at this. This is also interesting. He's got a bunch of mags behind his plate carrier. He also has a mag pouch here. And the mags behind are fascinating because, one, they're really hard to access. And it implies to me that within his unit, he's going to expect not him, but one of his buddies to be able to get at the mag. So it's not like saying, hey, do I need these mags? I can't get at them. He's like, if my battle buddy needs a mag, he can take them out of this. It may also be something where he may be able to like quickly drop the pouch, but it looks like it's attached to his plate carrier, so you wouldn't really drop that. Notice here, another absolutely outstanding tactical piece of gear is a fleece. Man, fleece zip up. Again, I have a Army military or an Army surplus in ACU gray. It was literally like $16 on eBay. This thing is the best fleece. It's wonderful. It's great. Cold morning. I mean, it was great when I was in the military, and it's great now that I'm a civilian. Does it look cool? No, but it's military grade gear, man. It doesn't have to look cool to be effective. And the fact that people think, oh, the ACU looks dumb, means that you can get this stuff at a steal. Again, interesting. This looks like a 22-volt battery pack powering this thing. You could see it looks like some carbon fiber frame, so tough and extremely light. I'd be curious to know what the quadcopter fins are made out of. But you can see there's like a single engine. Looks like just actuators kind of powering each of these four rotors. But very simple design. And you can see that basically most of the weight of this thing is the explosive.
Сейчас середину зацеплю еще раз. Стяжки. Все, у меня все готово. Ждем подтверждений.
The Slav squat. Listen, in combat, in the field, when it's wet, you learn to not sit down if you don't have to. All right, nothing sucks worse than getting your uniform wet, and then you're wet all day and all night. So instead, you want to just, I'm dunking on people for doing the Slav squat. You too want to do the Slav squat.
Что это?
Это за счет удара дрона либо об землю, об блиндаж, об какое-то препятствие, то есть при ударе. Здесь идет накольник, детонатор срабатывает, дает детонацию и уже...
Oh, interesting. So it sounds like the drones have a detonator on the front, right? I think it's that copper wire, and it hits something and it completes a circuit and blows the drone. But he's like, it also has a plunger on the front. So if the drone is shot down, if anything jostles or contacts the plunger, it's going to self-destruct the drone. It's a very simple self-destruct sequence, which is really nifty.
Идет взрыв, и за счет поражающих элементов уже, как говорится, лишаем противника жизни. Потому что 49-200 частоту они не хотят использовать, чтобы остаться живыми и просто вернуться домой. Будем поступать по...
Interesting. He says they don't want to use the frequency. So I think this is their like a Russian military frequency they keep open to surrender, 49,200. I bet that's the Russian military is like, hey, we keep this open. You contact us on this frequency in order to surrender. We know that Ukraine has their own version of that numbers, phone numbers that Russian soldiers can text to defect.
Хотят использовать. Будем поступать по-другому. Все, я готов. Сейчас наш второй товарищ поднимет дрон-разведчик, пронаблюдает территорию, даст мне подтверждение, то, что есть там противник, и уже потом...
Here's what I find really fascinating. Patrick Lancaster seems like a very devout guy because, look, he has like prayer seals here. This is a wax seal with an Orthodox prayer. What I find most interesting about this is that you might find them, it might be a little familiar because it's also something from the Warhammer 40K lore. Let's see. Let's see if we can find if I'm right. Yeah, okay, so this looks like what seems to be called a Prosophoro seal. This is from the Orthodox Church. Literally stamped with the seal of the Holy Spirit. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's what this is. See, these are all the seals from the Orthodox Church. Let's see. And I'll bet it's accompanied with a prayer in Russian. So seemingly a very devout guy.
Его отталкивать от его показаний, я буду запускать уже камикадзе в их сторону.
Ага. И вы думали, этот процесс сейчас опасный или как?
Ну, с тем учетом, то, что мы более-менее, скажем, под прикрытием находимся, думаю, что вражеские дроны нас не увидят, и мы быстро отработаем и уедем, потому что сейчас это очень опасно.
Ага.
Потому что нас так же само могут определить, найти, обнаружить и применить, в принципе, против нас то же самое, что и мы делаем.
Yeah, this is, I mean, nothing further to add. Yeah, if you can hit them, they can hit you. Notice here, it's a 511 cap, which I find really interesting. That's a US-made brand. Very popular. Okay, I can't show this. Let's see. They observe the soldiers in a trench. Now it looks like he's coming out. Interesting too. Oh, okay, so it's not on his back, it's on his side? No, we saw it. It looked like it was on his oh no, I guess these are way in the back. Okay, I guess you could get them. Okay, I like the Winnie the Pooh on the back. That's a funny touch. Notice this guy, another pretty professional dude. He's got his pistol here and a lanyard. I want to know more about this guy. Seems like pretty clean gear, but seems like a very pretty savvy drone operator. I wonder if 3-man teams is the Russian standard for running drones like this.
Все, это есть дело. Все, иди занимай позицию свою. Будешь готов, скажешь. Все, давай, я включаюсь.
All right, this is incredibly weird. All right, so I can't show you this, but I just want to make the observation here. This is, every soldier has a sense of humor, man. Okay, the drone takes off. Interesting. Oh, he also is subject to the same censorship. Look at this. He has the drone in flight, and then he cuts it out, and he's like, and now it cuts. Oh, nope. Never mind. He's gonna show this. Okay, let's see. Looks like they're running a second.
По-новому повыбегают с окопов, либо эвакуацию, и ждем.
Okay, see, he said to wait until they get out of their trenches and start an evacuation. This is extremely common and actually something that we also saw Iraq and Afghan insurgents would do, is that they would have a primary IED hit a military target, and then when the Kazovac crew arrived, then they would launch or detonate a second IED. And so this idea of following up and exploiting a Kazovac is a very common, a classic military tactic. Again, something that if you've ever seen Enemy at the Gates, you know that I think it's more apocryphal because it's something, it's close to a law of war violation. But if you ever saw sniper movies like Enemy at the Gates, you often saw this where a skilled sniper would wound a combatant and then would wait for the combatants' battle buddies to come try to evac them, and then the sniper would take out 2 additional troops.
Сейчас лучше отойти, если сейчас передали, что FPV-дроны работают.
Okay. He said, it's better to go inside. I've received information that their drones are working too, and they're going to lift up their reconnaissance. Again, this is exactly what you'd expect from a sniper spotter. 2 people, their whole focus is the drone, the attack drone, and his focus is the whole tactical situation.
Сейчас начнут поднимать тоже разведывательные дроны, вычислять нас, искать. У нас охота между собой, мы их ищем, они нас ищут. Пару раз перехватывали, откуда взлетают. Отрабатывали сразу же, но неудачно. Попали, но, видать, никого не зацепили, потому что тот же оператор, перехватывали видеосигнал, работает тот же оператор. Поэтому ищем вновь. Надеюсь, что найдем.
This is really interesting, right? This idea of highly individual cat and mouse games. Again, mark my words, someone's going to make a movie about this. 2 drone operators on either side of a war fighting each other. Again, Enemy at the Gate style, right? Straight out of that movie. Major Koenig and Vasily, what's his name?
Ну, больше, чем уверен, что найдем.
Посмотри, вот чуть сюда левее возьми, к северу. Там квадрат тебе сейчас покажу. Там вроде бы как тоже движения было.
Давай за этим понаблюдаем, все вообще
Добро.
посмотрим. Может, что-то изменится. Сейчас, если техника поедет, можно FPV отправлять, а если нет, то, я думаю, старшие братья с нами поработают.
Interesting. He calls them, so he says the elder brothers will work with us and use a mortar fire. He's saying big brother will come in with mortars. That implies, that's kind of I think it's a Russian euphemism or a Russian military euphemism for the progressive escalation of forces, right? So you have drones with small anti-personnel charges. Then you have mortars, 60 and 120 millimeter, which pack a bigger punch. Then you have artillery. And then finally you have things like CAS, glide bombs, Shaheds, and other like big heavy ordnance.
Минометным огнем накроем.
I love the fact that there's very little editing here. They're letting all of these scenes kind of play out, right? The way that the crew watches kind of in anticipation. And this makes sense, right? He's watching not just because it's interesting, but because he's going to have to, either one of these guys could have to walk the drone onto the target. So they too need to see the battlefield to understand, because they're going to be piloting a drone through this space as well.
No. Ну, расход батареи маленький, возвращаюсь обратно. По движениям 0.
Yeah, Ukrainians know they're being watched. They've gone to ground. I mean, listen, if you've ever been hunting, you know, this is how it is, man. You get that one shot a day, those animals aren't coming back, man. And human beings, some of us, are at least as smart as a deer, okay. But certainly those same principles still apply, right? You know the enemy's watching you, you get extra careful.
Что, ты на обратку идешь?
Да.
центр, я воздух, возвращаюсь домой.
Again, this is an experienced team where he says, I'm coming back, and he doesn't need to tell his battle buddy, hey, call it in. The guy goes, I know, I've seen this. Okay. And he just calls his, we used to call it X-ray. It sounds like the Russian call sign is center. So probably like headquarters. This is air. This is your air asset. For this mission, I'm RTB. I'm returning to base. Interesting they don't want to show the drone landing sequence. Really interesting. But clearly it's happening. Clearly he's walking the drone onto its landing pad. Or the drone might be walking itself. I'm not sure if Mavics can, like, auto-land.
Ну, как-то так.
Будет второй? Будет второй камикадзе или нет? Ну, все.
Есть ли необходимость запускать еще один FPV?
Ну, я думаю, кто сейчас на линии, все равно машину увидит. Если эвакуация, что-то будет, сообщит. Сразу взлетим, поменяем батарею сейчас. Взлетим на готове будем. То есть глаза у нас там есть. Ребята на передке сидят, наблюдают всегда на Фоксе. Всегда дежурят. Поэтому предупредят.
Yeah, so this is a good point, right? He says, listen, there's still guys on the front line who are watching, who have direct observation, right? And that's not as good as a drone in the air. But there may also be other drone crews. There may be kind of a relief system where one drone pulls off, another drone gets airborne.
При любом движении. Просто там пулемет, и он очень сильно кошмарил нас, ребят на передке. Поэтому пришлось отрабатывать. Вот. Сейчас будут вести наблюдение.
So it sounds like, again, you know, sometimes with these kind of tactics, especially something like a drone or mortar fire, just knowing that the enemy, like your enemy's sending the message, hey, I know where you are. And that's the message they probably sent to the Ukrainians, is to say, hey, listen, we saw your machine gun position, we hit it with a drone, and we know if you put that machine gun back out in that position, we'll hit it again because we're watching and you know we're watching. So even without producing casualties, you can still force an advantageous change to the battlefield situation. It sounds like that's what they did here.
Движение передавать уже. А мы уже будем либо думать, работать с минометом по корректировке, либо запускаем еще один FPV-дрон и отрабатываем также по цели. Сейчас отработали FPV-дроном по цели, по пулеметному гнезду, который кошмарил наших ребят. Сейчас ожидали движения не наблюдают. Ребята до сих пор наблюдают за ним, кто ближе к линии находится. Передали, что был замечен дрон разведывательный, чужой. Поэтому будем сейчас менять позицию, потому что ищут нас. Потому что отработали FPV-дроном, сразу поднимают, разведывательные ищут нас. Поэтому лучше побыстрее сейчас меняем позицию и ожидаем дальнейших команд. Если будут цели, будем отрабатывать. Если нет, то будем ожидать.
So this is really interesting, right? He's like, listen, if there's more targets, we'll hit them. If not, we'll wait. Yep, this is the classic move. Hurry up and wait around. But you see why Russia wants these drone operators to be on standby, because they've got a speed and a turnaround time that's so short that it is just too good for them to not have them on standby.
So you've heard and seen what the real situation here is on the ground. And we bring you this information because no one else will. We want you to get as much information from every source as possible. Don't just watch my reports because I don't have all the information to show you everything. Don't just watch the Western media reports because they won't show you everything. See, watch things from both sides of the line so you can educate yourself. As I always say, don't get led like sheep by the Western mainstream media. Think for yourself. Make your own opinions. You can support our work with The link on the screen are in the description.
Okay, so again, that was interesting. That was one of the most interesting and uncensored, unvarnished insights into the Russian military's operation. And like, he's right. I got value out of that reporting. Now, what I appreciate is that he didn't extol upon the whether the Russian operation is good or bad, whether the Ukrainians are good guys or bad guys. And that, I can appreciate information, and I hope you guys got some value out of it. And I will see you guys in the next one. Huge shout out, of course, to the members of combatvetnews.com, right? All of our colonel tier members, our lieutenant tier members, and all the members of combatvetnews.com. Couldn't do it without you guys. See you in the next one. Cheers.